Yep, we're up. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Patriot Lament. Got Mike and Rob here with me today. We're just going to go over a few things in the news and discuss a few things that we're following that we actually been talking about before we started up here. I guess let's start off with some market stuff, guys, just to get that in and out of the way. I was expecting a pretty good drop today because the Warren Buffett, sold all his airline stocks. 6.8 billion's worth, I believe, is how much. And he said he doesn't see anything changing from the current situation the airlines are in the near or even long future, which is he has not. Berkshire Hathaway or whatever, they're holding, I think, 157 billion in cash right now, or 137 billion, which is pretty unheard of. It's a lot of money to just have in cash, but they don't see anything worth investing in right now. So he held a press conference and said all these things. And so when the market opened, it did take a pretty good hit early off and then kind of corrected itself. And now pretty much at day's end, it just kind of went sideways again. As well as gold, as well as silver. Everything just kind of did nothing, except for oil went up a little bit. Oil's up to $21. Even the dollar index just kind of stayed sideways. So not much happening there. And part of the it's interesting, the resurgence, the bounce back has to do with a little bit of what Mike and I were just talking about, that we talked about a few days ago. The Federal Reserve in New York is going to start purchasing bonds, including the good old junk bonds, ETFs, and all the works. So never fear, the federal dollar is here. They expect to start that up here in the next week or so, I believe. So that, I imagine, will prop up bad stocks. And people make bad investments. So the government will buy them out. They didn't really put a
opportunity there.
Did you remember seeing any dollar figure on that? Like, were they going to stop at a certain dollar? I don't remember.
I don't remember seeing one there.
I think they're just going to buy, and buy.
Yeah.
Print.
Yeah, I don't see any numbers here on the right off the bat. So it's probably undetermined at this point.
There we go. Yeah, but it'll be a lot one way or the other.
It'll be a lot, yeah.
First of the monies to go out to the different municipalities have gone out. Looks like they're talking several billion to different charities, otherwise known as broke municipalities. The total figure that they're working on, I guess, when they get back into session, when Congress comes back, is going to be about $1 trillion in municipal bailouts. And I imagine that would include purchasing municipal bonds. But, I mean, the sad story, I guess, and well, all of it is, but part of the sadness of this, the stupidity of it, is that all these smaller municipalities and states and stuff like that are basically getting rewarded for being spend freaks. I mean, they've been tax and spend. Like New York City's 143 billion in debt right now. 143 billion. And they say they only have about 13 billion. So they want the federal government to bail them out, loan them the money, because of course they're all saying that they're broke because of Corona. So they're going to try to get a nationwide bailout to the tune of $1 trillion.
Wow. Yeah, well, that's why Nashville is implementing their 32% tax increase to cover the shortfall from Corona. So I'm sure that'll happen elsewhere. Maybe even Fairbanks.
Well, it's too bad they didn't fire all of their employees, Mike, when they told us we couldn't work anymore. They should have fired all of them. Maybe their expenses would have went down for one. Payroll would have went down.
Yeah, when you talk about non-essential employees, you think they lay off the state first.
Yeah, I can think of every single one of them that are non-essential.
I mean, they do need the rest of the economy to live off of, right?
Yeah, that's true. Well, the other interesting thing is like schools are closed down, right? I've been looking, but I haven't seen a rebate from the borough for my portion of the school debt that I pay every year, which is like $6,000 a year.
Yeah, you're still paying for a supposed service that doesn't even exist.
Right. I can't even take my dog out to poop on the doggy park lawn because I believe they're closed. That's disturbing.
Yeah.
I pay a lot of money to take my dog out to go poop on their yard. Maybe what we should do is take our dogs to the borough building and have them poop in their lawn. That'd be a little better. Close the doggy park. We'll open up a new one right here. So, from what we've seen already with the state of Alaska that got $1.3 billion in emergency COVID-19 funds, Alaska's sharing about $550 million of that money to local municipalities, smaller municipalities, and it looks like there's a little bit of shimmying here and there to their buddies. Everyone's prize items that they love to fund are going to get most of the funds. It's not going to go. I mean, they're going to use it as a slush fund, is what I'm getting to. It's not going to go to anything that was decimated because of this or that or COVID-19. It's going to go, oh boy, we were already broke and we were cutting our budget because we didn't have the money for this, this, and this. So now they're going to use the extra funds to fund those things. Like education, right? They cut education, so now they're going to reinvest in our children with education. So we'll see how that turns out, but
they're using the online education format now. So right. Yeah, I guess in a way you're paying the government for them to allow you to use your own house to educate your own children with their system.
Okay.
You're paying taxes to house your own children during the school day.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's what that $1,200 was that we didn't get.
Well, I'm paying for other people's kids.
Yeah,
me too.
You're paying for other people's kids to stay home too.
Yeah.
My kids have never walked through the door of a stupid public school, and we still pay it.
I might have it either.
Oh well, I mean, the point of it all is that we're in the middle of what's seriously the biggest heist. The biggest heist was back in 2008, and we've blown that out of the water. So now we're reintroducing the new biggest heist known to mankind, the biggest transfer of wealth the world has ever seen in its entirety. I mean, all the transfers of wealth that have happened before are nothing compared to what's happened right now combined.
No,
it's that much cash money.
Yeah, it's like the dying breath, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, and there's a lot of people, and I'm not too sure I'd be calling for hyperinflation, though it's definitely a possibility, especially with the amount of small businesses. We were just talking before we started this up. I think was it 30%, something around there. They're saying 30% of small businesses are toast. They're not coming back.
Right.
And
And most,
Go ahead,
most
Mike. I'll
I'm
look
just
it
saying,
up.
most of the economy is made up of small businesses, isn't it? It's around 95% of the economy is small businesses.
Mm.
So,
Yep.
so essentially, yeah, essentially, or nearly a third of your economy isn't coming back just by those two numbers. So,
I
yeah,
was
and then
trying to find that story real quick.
oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Most of the economy is made up of small businesses, and if 30% of those aren't coming back, then you can count on close to a third of the economy dropping off, and that's what they're projecting right now. It's going to be higher than that in the end, especially if there's a round two, like they're talking about, and people just aren't going to have.
There's gonna
Mhm.
be.
Yeah, yeah, and they're probably just. I would guess that they are talking about the businesses who don't have the funding to continue on at this point. Um, but there will probably be people who would just say, what's the point? Why should I go back into business if they're just going to shut me down on round two anyway, or whenever they wish? So that number, I'm sure, is going to be higher in the end.
Yeah, here it is. So do do do. 43% of small businesses surveyed have reported they can survive for a couple months or less. 31% of all small businesses saying they will only last a month, 7% less than a month, and 6% less than a week
Okay.
under the current conditions. So we could have, when we say could, this is one of the situations where could is a very viable possibility.
Mm-hmm.
43% of small businesses going under within
Right.
the next 2 months.
And
And we've,
uh,
go,
oh,
go
I was
ahead.
just saying the governor's emergency powers run until November 15th. So that's a lot longer than 2 months.
Correct. Yeah. And we're seeing, Northeast states are have extended their lockdowns. The state of Oregon extended their lockdown to July 6th, which how, it boggles my mind. How can they be so fine? I mean, they know it's going to happen July 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the arbitrary number? I know one thing. It makes sense to me that they're trying to make sure that no one gets out and about on the July 4th. That's when people like to get together and do some grilling, shoot some guns, do all that fun stuff. So just after the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
But you tell them how in the world they expect any of their small businesses, any of their businesses to last a couple more months. That's 2 more months.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we could speculate that what we just read out of Zero Hedge, 43% of their businesses will be out of business in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care. They
Right.
don't care. I mean, people just gotta open back up. You just gotta do it yourself. Take the consequences. I mean, you're looking at, for one, chances are there will be no consequences. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Alaska. They do not want to enforce anything because they don't have the power to.
Mm-hmm.
So folks just gotta tell them to screw off and do it.
Consequence will be the second wave.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. I mean, they're predicting it to make sure that it happens. So,
Right.
plus the federal government today is saying that they expect total deaths to go up by 3,000 per day till the middle of June. Now, that's their new speculation because we're opening up too quickly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I saw a video that was posted by a nurse in New York, talking about her experiences. She was posting from I guess it was the break room. She was talking about she was at the NYC hospital, and she was talking about how they're treating the patients there, and she says that all the patients going in there are COVID patients, quote COVID patients, right? But they're essentially killing them. They're sticking
Right.
tubes down their throats wrong, and they die. She talked about one guy who had a steady pulse of 40 beats per minute, and they defibrillated him and killed him. And she just kept going through these examples, and these all came in as COVID patients. And you saw the statistics of how high the COVID death numbers were in New York City, especially in the Hood area, right, Queens area.
Yep.
And that's where she worked. And based on what she is saying, it sounds like a lot of these COVID numbers are people who are just being killed out of a rush through incompetence. And she literally said in her video that they're murdering the people. So it makes me definitely not want to go to any hospital. Yeah. So if they're claiming, on the fringe conspiracy side of things too, it makes you wonder if they are going to project 3,000 deaths per day. They probably would like that to happen so they can keep things shut down. So what lengths are they going to go to make sure those numbers are met?
I was bringing it back home here to Alaska. In Bristol Bay, they had a deal put together. You know, the locals made some kind of a deal where they're going to implement, because, you know, fishing season's coming up. 12 to 15,000 people flood in to the area, and the state medical, whoever she is, said, "Nah, not good enough. Not going to do it." And I thought it was funny. I was reading with Bryce Eggman. He's the Speaker of the House. Must be Republican. Who knows? And he says about the whole deal that I think in the end we're going to look back and realize we didn't do enough. And that's the part that keeps me up at night. Everyone is truly trying to put as many safeguards in place as possible, but I think at the same time, whether people admit it publicly or not, the region is not going to be fully protected this summer. So these guys, leaders supposedly called, are just sitting in Juneau, scared to death. Or, you know, wherever they are. They're not sitting in Juneau. But these people that go to Juneau, they're just sitting around with their tail between their legs, scared to death. Did we do enough? Did we do enough? Did you destroy enough people's lives, you jackasses? There's still 370 people that have been infected. Not dead, infected. 9 deaths. And that was like, the last death was what, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And that's what they said had coronavirus. They went and opened up the stupid Carlson Center for the overflow because, we're getting headlines of Fairbanks is in the front lines of deaths now, blah, because we had 3 out of 100,000 people that live here. Right. These morons, and they're sitting around scared to death. You can't live your life being scared to death.
And what is it? Like, what is coronavirus? How are they confirming these cases? What's the test method? Are they just calling, or what are they calling coronavirus, you know?
Yep. And how does Alaska know? Because I have not seen any that they've done any testing like they have in California, New York, and Germany, where they're saying that the numbers of positive cases, they're saying like New York is somewhere around 300,000 more people than they thought had been infected. Not dead, infected. Well, that lowers your rate. So their death rate's like 0.04 or 0.3, 0.1. It's less than the flu.
Yeah, I did the numbers on that. In California, they were projecting This was early on. They were assuming not assuming they were they were making the calculation, but that between 212,000 up to 440,000, something like that, had been infected, and they'd only had a few deaths, but they were basing the mortality rate on having only I think it was 7,000 infected. So their actual mortality rate was around 0.15%. And of course, most of those are people who are in their 70s or 80s. I think the average age of I know in down here in Florida, in Brevard County, the average age of death for COVID was it was like 70, 74. The average lifespan is 72. So most of the deaths are occurring in the elderly, and most of those are in nursing homes. So the if you want to protect them, what makes sense is and protect people out of isolation. What makes sense is to isolate them, not the entire society.
No, Mike, come on now. You hate old people, I can tell.
Yeah, oh yeah, no. Well, it's just I would rather they die now than have to starve later as the famine hits. Might as well just get it over with early.
There's a positive outlook.
The ones without symptoms are the most dangerous.
That's true.
Right.
Like the three of us.
That's what we've been told.
Yeah. We're the most dangerous. We're the ones that need to be locked indoors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people we know that have thought that Corona traveled through Alaska back in December, which makes a lot of sense if you consider the amount of traffic we get from China.
Yeah.
I mean, the cargo traffic we get is amazing. And the amount of tourists we get in the wintertime from China there's tons of people in and out and in and out. So I think if this is all wonderfully spreading, the most viral spreading virus ever known to mankind, then it's probably already been here a long time ago. Spread through and left. Why else is there only 377 people? Because it's not because we social distance. I mean, I just watched a great Larkin Rose video, and he was talking about something that makes sense. With social distance and everything, they never said that social distancing and all this and that was going to lower the numbers of people infected, right?
Right.
That was never the thing. It was just to slow it down so the hospitals wouldn't be overwhelmed. But the amount of people to get infected are the same in this curve as it is in this curve. They're the same. So people are going to get infected one way or the other. So they've been lying to us.
Are the
whole
hospitals
time they've been lying. They were never overwhelmed.
And
heck no, they weren't.
Even
And
if they were,
social distancing did that.
If they were, is it because they sent everyone home? Everybody had to stay home. They can't work at the hospital, so I don't know. I mean, I know our hospital wasn't overwhelmed. That's all I can base it off of. But
there are plenty of videos around. Right. But the point is, they've been lying to us the whole time, because remember they said in the very beginning we're going to have 2 million deaths in America from this. Not quite. Not even close. In fact, everyone that dies pretty much gets called a COVID-19 death, and they still haven't even hit 70,000 yet.
Right. And remember that paper I showed you a couple shows, it was a Friday, that came from the CDC. And as of April 21st, they only had 11,000 deaths recorded from COVID. But they had pneumonia and flu deaths, pneumonia, flu, and COVID deaths all added up came out to around 55,000. So when you do the math on that, only about 1/4 of the number of the number of flu and pneumonia deaths unassociated with COVID was 4 times that of COVID alone. So flu and pneumonia not associated with COVID was 4 times that of COVID on April 21st, according to the CDC's own numbers.
Yeah.
But all we hear about is COVID. We don't hear about flu. But everyone goes into the hospital as a COVID patient.
Well, how is the flu even spreading? That's what I want to know.
Well,
how
that's an interesting question because it's spreading around. It's spreading around in the same circumstances that COVID is. So apparently, the flu is even more contagious than COVID.
But we should have flattened the flu out.
Right. But it's not working.
Flu.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point.
That's what we need to start focusing on.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. If you use the flu as a surrogate to test the efficacy.
I mean, as far as I know, these face masks and gloves would stop the flu pretty well.
Yeah, they're both viruses that spread the same.
I know it's not very effective as far as what I've heard for the COVID. These masks, they're not that effective, but for the flu, I would think they're pretty effective.
Yeah, but how do we know? They're a bunch of lying sacks of crap. I mean, one day they tell us don't wear a mask; it doesn't do any good. Rah rah rah. Now we're gonna fine your butt $10,000 and throw your butt in jail if you don't wear a mask in public. Rah rah rah. What are you talking about? They don't know what they're talking about. They're a bunch of scared little kids, especially the ones in Juneau. You know, I did have a couple people write me back, legislators, and they said the whole purpose of what they did was we are scared. They're scared. They're supposed to be leaders. Leaders don't get scared. At least they don't lead on being fearful. You don't lead from a position of fear. That's bullcrap. So you're going to destroy this much because you're scared that this might happen. And, you know, I got some letters where they're, well, you know, at the time, the information we were getting, but we were getting the same information that they were, the exact same. They weren't getting any special, you know, COVID-19 super secret mission reports. They were getting their information the same way we were. So none of us were scared. I was never scared of this thing from day. What? Huh? What? But they are scared. They're so scared. They're such panty waist weaklings. They wanted to shut everyone down, not because they're scared of you or I getting sick. They're scared of themselves getting sick. That's exactly what some of these emails I got back said. Well, we have, you know, elderly people here in our legislature, and they're scared they're going to get sick, so we needed to do something about it. Go the heck home, you moron. You're scared you're going to get sick because you're elderly. Go home. Isolate yourself. Quarantine yourself. If you're susceptible to being sick in the first place, why are you out in the middle of a crowd of bunch of people anyway? You don't quarantine healthy people. What kind of mad world is the world is totally insane.
Yeah, in fact, going back to the whole issue of masks, I found this article from the Oral Health Group, and it's an article that goes through multiple studies. This was written in 2016, and the title is "Why Face Masks Don't Work: A Revealing Review. Yesterday's scientific dogma is today's discarded fable." And it talked a little bit about SARS and studies relating to that. I'll have to send it to you. But yeah, they don't actually work. They're just there to make people feel good, to alleviate their phobias, and that's all we're doing. It's really sad. Here we are complying with people in fear because of their fears.
Right. And the only way that they know how to make things happen for what they want is to induce more fear, right? If you're not sufficiently scared of the virus, then we're going to scare you with jail time or fines, imprisonment, punishment. Rawr. Typical status bullcrap. All they can do is hammer the nail.
Right. It's like they're the chickens and we're the chicken crap. At least as far as they're concerned.
You're funny. Well, oh, show us your shirt, Mike.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of math.
So I had this made up. I just got it. There you go. See.
I love it.
I figured, we're kind of like Saudi Arabia now. We might as well admit it, making us wear coverings over our face.
Well, except we're not, because well, I guess not Saudi Arabia necessarily, but I just was reading that the Muslims, the Muslims in Afghanistan.
Oh, they're not wearing them.
I forget where they were going. Anyways, it's Ramadan, So a couple 100,000 Afghanis gathered together, even though their government has them in lockdown. Told them they couldn't. They're supposed to social distance and this and that. But those backwards Muslim Afghanis are defying their government and going to their place where they're supposed to gather and worship their God anyways, despite what their stinking government's telling them. Now, here in the land of the free and home of the chickens, our government gets scared and says, "Oh, you can't go to church." And everyone goes, "Okay." Ooh. The land of the free, we're putting burqas on and closing our churches.
Right.
And then
those Muslims are extremists, right?
Oppressed, right. The oppressed Muslims are defying their government. America sucks. I mean, America sucks. That's all there is.
Well, in Saudi Arabia, they give people an excuse as
bunch of pansies.
Yeah, they give people an excuse as to why they have to wear masks over their face, or women, to prevent families from breaking up. And as far as health reason goes, I don't think they mention it, but it does help prevent melanoma. So it does serve a practical purpose, right? But does that change the fact it's wrong for the state to demand that people wear a face covering?
Well, and over there, it's not like here, where government just shoots people every once in a while. When they make a decree over there, they kill people.
Right.
Right. You shall do this or shall not do that. And if you do or don't, then we chop your arm off, chop your leg off, cut your head off.
But they can't do it to. They can't do it to thousands of people in a day. I mean,
exactly.
So it's a little easier.
Rob. They can't stop 100,000 people.
Right.
They don't want to kill their whole population. Then they have no one left to kill.
I bet, we're starting to see more and more demonstrations here in the States, but I bet if you combine all the people together, it's probably not even 100,000 people. I doubt it. I don't know. I just thought it was pathetic. As much as Americans like to make fun of the Muslims and the Afghanis and the backward people that we're so scared of, and they're not scared.
Nope.
Maybe the infidels could learn a few lessons from the Mohammedans.
Yeah.
No, actually, what Americans will do, they'll see those stupid Muslims? They're over there. They're so stupid. We need to crack down even harder over here to show them how to free people live. But, if they hate us for our freedom, they should surely love us now, right? We got to be like their best friends. They're probably praying for us now because we're
looking up.
Definitely not free.
Well, I've seen articles and comments of people shaming Muslims for going to mosque, just as if you're in some dictatorial Mideast country, shaming you for going to a church. So who's actually backwards?
America.
Yeah.
I mean, America sucks. That's my new motto. America sucks.
Yeah, it's
I mean, just a little bit of fear. We totally ceded everything to the federal and state governments.
Shame on you for
Not
not
even the
wearing
federal
your face
government, really.
coverings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shame on you for not wearing your face covering. Shame on you for going to your religious services that are not associated with our state.
They don't really need to take our guns if they can just tell everyone to stay home.
No, yeah.
Very good point, Rob. Exactly. Oh no, you got guys that are sitting in their home oiling them up, going, "Oh man, they're gonna come for the gun next. They're gonna come for my guns next. I'll be ready.
Why?
I'll be
Why
ready.
would they? Why would they?
I lost my job. I'm sitting at home because they told me to. I don't go to church. I don't. I'll do everything they tell me to. And by golly, when they come get my guns, woo-wee. Why would they bother? They'd have no reason to bother.
No. Oh,
But it makes Americans feel tough, though.
yeah.
Got our guns. Rawr.
Well, guys, I'm gonna have to check out here. My battery's almost dead, and I gotta get out of here.
Right on. Thanks for
Okay.
joining us, Rob.
We'll see you later.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Your
thanks for
mug.
inviting me.
Thanks for
You
coming
guys have a good
Yep.
one.
on. You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Now we can talk about Rob. We've been discussing a little bit about food shortages, and it looks like the closest, realistically, it looks like we should be seeing about 3 months worth, from what I can gather, of food shortages. Should last about 3 months. Now, what that amounts to is anyone's guess, I think, right now. I've been kind of watching Massey, Representative Massey, whenever he blabs about something, because he's a rancher, you know. He's probably the least tyrannical of the tyrants. If that's a gold star, I don't know, but he's been signaling the alarm for this for a few weeks, actually. I think he was ahead of the ball game there. And you know, he's not a fear monger. He's not a jackass like the rest of them, really. And he's saying he sees about a 3 month problem, and most of it's the distribution problem to the packing plants and out. And we did report that the Trump used the Stafford Act to require packaging companies to open back up. We were wrong there. He did use the Stafford Act, but he didn't demand. Apparently, he just gave them permission to go back to work, which they closed down voluntarily. So
Yeah.
there was no
COVID cases.
right.
And I think that's kind of to be expected, because if they are in business and they have COVID cases and something happens in the plant and it gets infected and someone gets infected and they get sued, it's probably a huge liability that they're just terrified of.
Yeah. Well, that is something that's reasonable, I think, for them to be afraid of that. Because that could put them out of business just as easily as a real pandemic could.
Yeah.
You get
and
10, 20, 30, 40 people suing the company for $5 million each.
Right.
And the federal government's already set a parameter of what people can sue their employers at if they get sick, and what they can sue them for, what the family can sue them for if they die. So it's kind of in the best interest of the companies to just shut down.
Yeah. And that's regardless of whether or not someone actually got COVID from some food item that they got. It's still an expense for them to prove that it didn't come from their plant.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll end up having to do. So.
Yeah, but I think the federal government's making it easier for people, which, you know, what business does the federal government have to do with a private company in an individual state?
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but they're kind of in charge of I guess Commerce Clause gives them the right to do whatever they want, right?
Well, yeah, it's the Commerce Clause. I mean, it actually it gives them the ability to demand that the economy reopen, because the economy being shut down in one state by the governor affects the economies of other states,
Right.
and so that's what they base the authority on. So yeah, the president actually could come out and say that all the governors have to reopen. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that at first a couple of weeks ago, and so I was wrong on that. But it turns out that the president can do that. But I think at this point, what he's doing is making the suggestion, and then Attorney General Barr is sending out those memos claiming that the Justice Department can go after governors and state officials who keep their state economies closed. That came out. That memo was April 27th. So,
Right.
yeah.
But do you think that they have the guts to do that? I mean, that's putting themselves in a pretty politically viable. I mean, not viable, but puts them in a politically hairy situation. Because if they force someone to open up and anyone gets sick after that, they'll go, Trump killed him.
Yeah, and it's probably part of the election ploys going into October.
Sure.
And if Trump ends up winning, probably see. I'm sure the second wave will hit. So.
Yeah, I'm imagining after the elections and round 2 hits us, they'll be a lot more bold to be more tyrannical, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not saying that Trump is any better than they are, but it's like two mafias fighting over the same office. So.
Yeah.
And we're stuck in the middle of it.
And if you're still not sure where you stand on all this COVID-19 stuff and lockdowns and blah, blah, I'll just have you know that over the weekend, the huckster of all hoaxes, George W. Bush, ex-President Bush, who said there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, he posted a nice message telling us all that this disease is going to kill us all and we got to work together. And, you know, he saw us all get together after 9/11 to pull through and work together. And we're just going to have to wash our hands, hunker down at home, and pull together, and we'll make it through this one too. So as soon as George W. Bush is for something, I'm opposite. I don't care what it is. If George says we got to hunker down and we'll get through it, then I say we all need to get out of our houses. Because he's the hoaxer of all hucksters.
Right. Well, COVID is a WMD, you know.
Yeah, we should get into that at some point. With respect to China, there's definitely over the weekend again, China stated that the likelihood of going to war over COVID-19 is very high. And they're actually, their ministry, was it the defense ministry or I forget who? Seems like it'd be their defense ministry. Basically, put the political party in a war setting. So they're prepared for a whatever attack.
Yeah, and at the same time, Pompeo is stating that U.S. intelligence services have information that it came from the Wuhan lab, and which, you know, it high likelihood it did. But they placing now it's a matter of placing culpability on them in the sense that they did it intentionally, or at least kept the information hid intentionally. Now they're claiming that China wanted to hoard the resources, so they hid it for a while from the WHO. And at the same time, the administration continues to sever trade relations with China. And the only thing the big thing that keeps nations out of war with each other is trade. And so you remove the trade, you start accusing the other side of something, you got a war.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Which would help oil prices, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it'd help oil prices.
Yeah, we don't need a war to help oil prices.
Unless it's just a nuclear war, then I guess it would help rocket fuel prices, but only for a short time.
It would help the mask industry. No, we'd run out of mask. We already had a mask. Yeah, we don't want a nuclear war. Or any. No. We don't need a war. Yeah, we don't need to. The likelihood that it did come out of a lab is pretty high, but it's not like the first time that a government agency's had a virus that they're messing around with it escaped.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like the Wuhan, wherever the virus started, if it was in that lab, it looks like the United States gave it to them in the first place to do trial tests on.
Yeah,
so,
there was an article I saw in Nature magazine that was from 2015, where that I can't remember, was it that lab or it was that area of China where they were collecting bats to test coronaviruses. I think it was that lab. So it could have just been one of those. But regardless of where it came from, it's being used as an excuse for war, which, I mean, did you ever think that they'd start World War III over what amounts to a somewhat benign cold virus? I mean, something that's 1/4 as deadly as the annual flu this year?
No, and I certainly never thought they would get all of America or the whole world to shut themselves down.
Yeah.
For months.
No.
Not like a week. Remember, they told us it'd be 14 days. Mm-hmm. It's been 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, if you had to bet $1 million, would you bet $1 million that the actual number of people that have been infected in the world is probably 5 to 10 times higher than the 3 million they're telling us?
I would bet 15 times higher at least.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Germany said
that.
Germany said 10 times higher. The amount of the infection rate. Now, I don't understand how. This is why I think it's important to think about what's really going on. What's the actual motive? Is when they want someone to be dead from COVID-19, they can get hit by a bus and they're dead from COVID-19. That's a fact, or a van, whatever. That happened, right? So they get to pad their numbers. Oh, look, our death rate's 6%, our death rate's 7%. Now, when they know that the actual infection rate's 10 times higher than what they've told us it is, what they're reporting, why don't they use those numbers now? Why don't they add those numbers? New York City got to say, well, we think we're going to add 3,700 people to the death list because we don't know what they died from, but it probably was COVID-19. So they get to automatically add that to the American deaths. Well, now that we know pretty positively that it's 10 times higher infection rate in the world than what we thought it was, that would mean there's 30 million people infected. So that means the death rate's below 0.5.
Yeah.
Why don't they add those numbers? Why did they add the numbers that make it look worse, but they don't? They want us to just forget about the numbers that make things sound like, oh, wasn't so bad after all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of things that have to make you think, what are they really doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they want things shut down, and
Why?
I think, well, I think they want. Well, you have the issues with Europe. Europe was under collapse anyway. The economic crash was going to occur. They needed something to blame it on. At the same time, you have the battle between the two parties, the Trump or the two mafias. I mean, the Trump mafia versus the Democrat mafia, the Hillary mafia, whatever. And then they're preparing for World War III. They need a depression in order to get people psyched up for war. They don't have anything else to do. Let's go join the military and go. Let's go have a war. Kind of like they did last time and the time before that.
Some more great news from Mike.
Yeah.
How come all your stories end up with World War III?
That's what it all adds up to, isn't it?
Well, when you talk about depression, when are they going to actually admit that we're in a depression? Because we know unemployment now has reached real unemployment's at 45 million in the last 2 months. 45 million. And I think they said, well, no, I don't think. So official depression numbers would be 32 million. And they were using that. They're comparing the Great Depression of the 20s, 30s to now, and something like, I forget how many percentage or whatever, but we're there. So when do they tell us that we're in a depression?
After 2 quarters of this, I guess. What is it? 2 quarters of negative growth.
It's got to be 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember that being the official, but right now they're projecting annual GDP to be minus 4.6%. I think it was.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's just after a couple of months of shutdown.
And the deficit right now, I think, is running at 4.4 trillion. That's how much money they got to borrow extra. So you just keep compounding that. So there's another 4.5 trillion on top of the 2.3 trillion, on top of the 4 trillion other dollars, on top of the other 350 billion, on top of the 2 trillion the Fed says it's going to use for small business loans, on top of the QE infinity of buying bonds, junk bonds, ETFs, and all those fun things. They could literally, it could hit $20 trillion pretty easy. Oh yeah, for sure. Because the last 2008, they pumped up $17 trillion. That was nothing compared to this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well.
All because we're scared.
Well, all because they're scared.
Right.
Right.
You know, it'd be nice if, let's just say, our governor here in Alaska would be a man and say, not going to live in fear anymore. We're responsible adults. Go out and do what you think is a responsible thing to do. And if you're worried, you stay home. And if you meet someone at the door and you're worried about social distancing, you back up. If you're worried about going to Costco, then you get the stuff shipped to your house. Whatever. Don't do it to everyone. This has never been done before. Stupid.
Yeah, they.
I mean, especially in Alaska, we've had 370 people be infected.
Yeah, there's the story in the News Miner recently. Or I'm sorry, a story in the News Minus recently. 3 new COVID cases in Alaska. Ooh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah,
You know, if you go outside to go to work, a lion might get you too.
I know.
It's
Or
a good
bear.
reason to stay home. The bear are out. Better not go to work. The government bear will get you.
Right.
It's frustrating.
Um,
But we're going to be hitting the 60s, almost 70 degrees here next week. So everyone get out and get some COVID-19 killing vitamin D.
yep.
And get out there.
Oh, I should be coming back for it. So if I can get on a plane.
Yeah. Are you going to sign the voluntary mandate, Michael?
Nope, don't intend to.
Ah. Well, that might be worth coming to film.
I think I'll wear my shirt though.
Oh, heck yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So I had a friend that just got back, well, a brother's friend, got back here from North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't hear if he signed it or not, but I'm sure he did. But they told him if he doesn't quarantine himself for 14 days, then he'll get a $25,000 fine.
Mm.
And if anyone hires him before the 14 days is up and puts him to work, they'll get $1 million fine.
Mm.
$1 million fine.
So they can just willy-nilly throw out these new laws, I guess, whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's
because they're scared.
Yeah, what's the point of the equal protection of law anyway? If the governor can just be a dictator and issue his own decrees, I mean, if he decides he wants to barbecue your firstborn child on his front lawn, why not?
Well, if it's an emergency health order, then what can you do, Mike?
Yeah.
What can you do? I think at least, I don't know if it's a statewide or at least a borough, they're doing a burn ban because they don't want us plebs starting fires and catching fires where the fire department would have to come and put the fire out because of coronavirus.
Uh-huh.
Putting them at risk to get the coronavirus by putting out a fire.
Uh-huh.
But of course, Fort Wainwright and Eielson, they're doing their yearly burn-offs this week. So we'll be filling up the valley full of smoke because they're, of course, smarter than the rest of us plebs are. And every couple of years, they burn 40, 50, 60, 100,000 acres. But
are they going to be doing their live fire exercises with? Yeah, are they going to be doing their live fire exercises with the tracer ammunition again this year, like they did that last time?
We'll never know.
Yeah.
Till the fire starts.
Yeah.
Such morons. I'm serious. We live in a stupid world. Really.
Yeah.
Pathetic. Stupid. So, might be time to get out the old burn barrel, throw a few tires in it, and light that baby up.
Uh-huh.
Celebrate the next revolution.
Right. Well, I guess that's what they're pushing for. I don't know. Did you see the video of the kid in Texas? Why wasn't the kid? He was 25. Who shoved the park ranger in the lake?
Yeah.
Some idiot park ranger was telling a group of swimmers they had to stay 6 feet apart. You have to stay 6 feet apart. Social distancing. And some guy just came up and shoved him in the lake. All the people were taunting the park ranger.
Yeah, that was great.
It's great to see that's and it's it's interesting. The timing is right too because it's at the numbers I saw was at about 4 weeks people get restless, and after 6 weeks you start to see violence erupt, and we're right at that point now.
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, isn't today the anniversary of when the National Guard murdered all those kids on the colleges?
I don't know if it is or not.
We're not old enough to remember such things, but I know there's people watching that are.
Is that Kent State?
No, I think today's the anniversary when they shot the 4 kids
Ah, okay.
protesting the Vietnam War.
Right. May 4th, 1970?
Huh.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Few years before our time.
Yeah. Interesting.
Should have been that could have been a little better coordinated. Could have had another round of rallies
Mhm.
on May 4th.
Mhm.
Oh well. Well, I guess I'm about done.
Me too. So I guess we'll be back Wednesday, right?
Yep. We'll just kind of watch what things are happening. You know, there's not a whole lot to say that we haven't, because it's kind of just that same old thing we've talked about before, where everything's going sideways. There's no real actionable, whoa, we see something happening for real now. But we just encourage people to get out, go back to work. If you got to do it underground, black market, or whatever like that, that's good for you. Get it done.
Mhm.
Get it done. We're doing this to ourselves. We've confined ourselves. We're the ones that quit going to church. We're the ones that shut down our own businesses. We're the ones that quit going to restaurants. We've done it to ourselves. And we can just as easily reverse that. They didn't force us. We did it ourselves.
Mhm.
So we can just as easily change our mind, repent from our evil ways of locking ourselves down, and go back out and live free.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
And the troopers aren't even. Have you heard of any case of them enforcing it?
They said they won't.
Yeah. So at least, yeah. So, and you have to reinforce this to them. I mean, do you really want to be carrying out the orders of cowards who issued a decree under their own fear?
Good point.
I mean,
No.
the troopers are supposed to be brave, right? But do they really want to go out and carry out these kind of orders issued under fear by cowards? I wouldn't think so. So, good for them. Good for them for not enforcing it. Because it's
I agree.
the state legislature that needs to come to their senses.
That needs to be fired.
That needs
And
to
no
be
one
fired.
hired.
Yeah. Right. Eliminate it
If
and
they're
replace it with nothing.
if they're that scared, they have not that anyone does have the right to that kind of power, but they've just proved to me again that one man should not tell another man what to do.
Yeah.
It's not right.
And every
This has been a prime example of it.
Yeah, and every dictatorship and tyranny that's ever come into existence has come into existence under fear.
Yep.
So,
the United Gestapo States of America. The UGSA. All right, Mike. Thanks, man.
okay.
Love you. See you soon, I hope.
Yep.
And everyone else, thanks for joining us. We'll see you Wednesday. And of course, if something dramatic happens, we'll pop on for an emergency order. But we'll just kind of float along with everyone else until things change. But we are staying on top of it. And we appreciate folks that are sending us videos and different articles that they're seeing too. So we're kind of all on the same page. For sure. Because the worst is yet to come. No doubt.
Yeah.
So we'll be ready for it. All right. Have a good day. See you Wednesday.
Later.
Bye.